Kaelen's hands shook as he faced the corrupted wolf creature, its red eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his feet remained rooted to the spot. Astra hovered by his side, her golden gaze steady and filled with unspoken encouragement. "Kaelen," she whispered, her voice slicing through his fear. "Now is the time." He clenched his fists, feeling the familiar flicker of warmth in his palms. His fire magic had always been erratic, unpredictable in moments of stress. The heat surged, flickered, then sputtered, like a dying ember. He gritted his teeth, desperate to summon the flame. The wolf shadow creature growled, shadows rippling across its body as it prepared to lunge. Kaelen's heart raced, and a bead of sweat trickled down his temple. He closed his eyes, trying to feel the magic coursing through his veins. Eldric's harsh words echoed in his mind. "Your magic remains inconsistent. It is a dangerous flaw." But Kaelen couldn't afford to let doubt take hold. Not now. The creature leapt, a blur of darkness and snapping teeth. Kaelen's eyes flew open, and he thrust his hands forward, willing the fire to come. A spark flickered to life, then erupted into a jet of flame that caught the creature mid-air. It howled, shadows splintering and burning away, but the flame was weak, sputtering out before the beast was fully engulfed. The creature landed heavily, dark tendrils recoiling and reforming. It snarled, clearly wounded but far from defeated. "Kaelen!" Astra's voice was sharper now, almost desperate. "Focus! You can do this!" He stumbled backward, his body trembling with the effort. Fear clawed at his chest, but he knew running wasn't an option. The creature would tear him apart. He had to find strength to anchor his magic, or he'd fail his mission, and himself. Astra flared with light, positioning herself between Kaelen and the creature. Her golden energy pulsed, momentarily driving back the shadows. "Trust yourself," she said, her voice fierce. "The fire is part of you." Kaelen took a shuddering breath, trying to drown out the chaos within. He remembered his earliest lessons, the ones before fear and failure had seeped in. Magic flows from the heart, not the mind. It is an extension of will, of belief. He shut his eyes again, picturing the warmth of the fire he had conjured on simpler days. Not with force or desperation, but with a calm certainty. The heat in his chest grew, spreading to his arms and hands, and this time he held onto it. The creature lunged once more, and Kaelen opened his eyes, his hands steady and sure. He released the fire with a roar, a blaze that engulfed the beast. The shadows writhed and screamed, breaking apart as the light consumed them. When the fire finally dimmed, only smoldering ashes remained. Kaelen's knees buckled, and he fell to the forest floor, panting. The effort had drained him, but he had done it. He had controlled the magic. Astra floated down beside him, her expression a mixture of pride and concern. "You did it," she said softly. Kaelen managed a weak smile. Barely. The forest around them seemed to sigh, the corruption retreating from where the creature had fallen. Astra's eyes gleamed with both pride and caution. "Then let's not keep destiny waiting. But first..." She glanced at the dimming sky, where evening shadows stretched across the forest floor. "You've spent your strength today. We should rest. Shimmerwood is challenging enough in daylight. It becomes even more treacherous after dark." Kaelen looked around, feeling a pang of frustration. He hated the idea of slowing down, of admitting that he needed to stop. But he knew Astra was right. The attack had left him drained, and he would need his strength for the journey ahead. With a resigned sigh, he nodded. They settled near a cluster of large, moss-covered rocks, which formed a small alcove, a natural shelter from the wind and creeping mist. Kaelen huddled within, pulling his cloak tightly around him as Astra floated nearby, her glow casting a faint light. He shivered, realizing how quickly the temperature was dropping now that night had fallen. He glanced down at his hands, still trembling from the earlier battle. "I'll start a fire," he muttered, trying to summon the warmth he had felt just hours before. He held out his hands, but his magic barely flickered, just a faint spark that died almost immediately. His body was spent, every ounce of energy burned up defending himself from the shadow wolf. Groaning, he looked around for dry sticks and leaves, piling them in front of him. He struck flint against stone, trying to catch a spark, but the wood remained cold and unyielding. Astra watched, her gaze sympathetic but silent. After several failed attempts, Kaelen dropped the flint, his fingers raw and his pride stinging. "Not tonight, then," he murmured, his voice laced with frustration. He leaned back against the cold, mossy stone, pulling his cloak tighter. The chill seeped into his bones, and he tried to find comfort in his exhaustion, hoping sleep would come quickly. But the night stretched on, and every shift of the wind seemed to bite deeper into his skin. Hours passed, and Kaelen lay wide awake, his mind flitting between the day's events and the dangers that lay ahead. His body shivered as the cold settled in, and he felt every inch the inexperienced mage he was. The forest around him was filled with eerie rustlings and distant, haunting calls, each sound reminding him of the trials he still had to face. Astra hovered close, her faint warmth a small comfort in the bitter night. "Tomorrow will bring new strength," she murmured softly, her voice soothing. Kaelen's eyes fluttered, the exhaustion finally overtaking him as he drifted into a fitful, shivering sleep, his dreams haunted by shadows and flickers of fire that wouldn't quite light. When dawn finally broke, its light spilling over the trees and casting away the night's chill, Kaelen awoke with stiff limbs and an aching resolve. The journey had only just begun, and he knew now how much he had to learn, not just about magic, but about surviving the wilds of Shimmerwood.